back to Tactics Talk with Guido. With this episode, I have a tank review, the WZ111G FT, Chinese Tier 9 beast of a TD. Great big old assault TD, you can see it right here. So we'll go over a general overview. We'll do it the same way I do most of these things. Take a look at the tech tree. We'll do a comparison between the other Tier 9 TDs. We'll look at my setup, and then we'll talk a little bit how I did, and I've got a couple examples of gameplay for you. So let's get started with the WZ111G FT Tier 9 Chinese tank destroyer. So general overview for this tank. I've done all the reviews on this from Tier 5 up to now Tier 9. When I start off in Tier 5, these Chinese TDs have pretty good guns, but down in the lower tiers they have almost no armor. As you get to about Tier 7, it starts to switch to both heavy armor and good guns, but quite a bit less mobility. The Tier 8 is quite the bruiser, a pretty good assault TD, and at Tier 9 it really comes into its own with the assault TD idea when you add the 750 alpha gun on top of it. But if you look at it with the rest of the Tier 9 TDs, you'll see that it is pretty big. Sturv is quite a bit smaller. The Foch is about the same size, maybe a little shorter. The Tortoise, of course, is massive, a little bit taller, and just a bigger tank all around. The object is actually a bit smaller than it if you take a look at it. Fairly comparable in playstyle, these two tanks, to some extent. The SU is a bit of an outlier. He's a tiny little thing at Tier 9, kind of like the Sturv. And the JT is nice and tall. You've got the T95 with a low silhouette, but just a great big massive fat tank out there. When we get to the comparison, I will not compare the turreted TDs to this tank, as it is a casemate. But that is pretty much this tank. Lots of armor up front. It's got pretty good angled armor right there, 200 millimeters. This is about 80, this flat small plate or flatter small plate up front. And I believe it's 120 on the bottom. But you can see that's a pretty large lower front plate, so that is a weak spot you'll need to hide. This spot is quite weak, but it's very angled. So, but any look down on it, face hugging where they can actually get down to that piece of armor right there, you're going to have a bit of trouble. You'll note, though, that the mantlet is massive, and you can bait quite a few shots off that big mantlet, especially if you're doing a little bit of wiggling, poking around corners and things like that. So that's the general overview. Let's get into the tech tree. For the tech tree, as I have noted for the rest of the tanks from Tier 5 on, all the crew positions are exactly the same. They all hold the same position in the tank from the Tier 2 all the way up to the Tier 10. So managing crew is going to be easy. You can continually just push them up without having to re-wicker their qualifications at all. So that's a pretty good deal. Like the tanks before, there's not a lot of modules to unlock. As a matter of fact, on this one, the Tier 9, both the engine and the radio are the same as they are from the Tier 8, so you won't have to unlock either one of those if you did it on the Tier 8. You're going to need to unlock the tracks, and you'll unlock the big gun. That's what I ended up doing because I had to run out of free experience by the time I got to the Tier 9. Never fear, though, the stock gun is quite capable. It's the big gun that you had on the Tier 8. It's dropping 560 alpha. So while it's not as amazing and good as a 750 alpha dropper, which you'll eventually get to, don't worry about it too much. The stock grind is comfortable. It's not great, but it is comfortable. And you'll just have to unlock the tracks if you don't have the free experience, and then onto the gun, and of course onto the Tier 10 there. So nothing really special other than to note, like I said, the radio and the engine are from the tank before, so you don't even have to unlock those two things. So we'll move on to my setup and how I did. As far as my setup goes, clearly I have all the modules taken care of by now as I've moved on. I am carrying a rammer, I've got vents, and I am carrying an enhanced gun laying drive. For all the tanks before, I said, you know, if you want to be a sniper, go ahead and think about the camo and the binocs, or maybe optics if that's your thing in there. But for this one, the brawler that it is, I would really recommend you just go for an offensive combat capability like this. You could do the sniper thing with it, but it's not really its forte with its okay gun handling stats. It's got some great armor, decent mobility. It really wants to be an assault TD, but play it to taste. So you can put a camo net and binocs on there if you want, or camo net to replace one of these and leave off the binocs. But I think it excels as a assault TD. Because the pen is so high, and we're looking at right here, we go over to this gun, we're looking at 290 and 395 with the heat. I only carry 4 heat, I have 2 HE for resets, and then 24 AP. That's about all you need with this. If you're running with the smaller gun, initially the stock gun, as you're grinding up, you may want to carry another 2 to 4 heat in that gun, just to make sure you can deal with whatever shows up. You'll see that I've got a small repair kit, small med kit, and a large fire extinguisher on there, which is kind of standard for all of my tanks. I said this about the one before. I didn't run into too much trouble with fires or ammo racks, but I have heard that ammo racks are a bit of an issue with this tank. When you have a very long reload and you get ammo rack, that is quite a bummer. So just watch out for that. And like I said, I always carry the large fire extinguisher on there. How did I do? Let's take a look at the stats on this. It took me 146 battles to get up to the tier 10, but that was also grinding those two modules, so it's quite a bit longer. Obviously it's a tier 9 going to 10 anyway, but it took me a little bit extra long there because I did not have the free experience. But I ended up with 57%, 0.53 wins. This is mostly solo. Survived 47, hits at 75, so my hits were increasing. This was an issue I had with the Chinese tanks overall. My lower tiers were having a heck of a time getting shots because I was trying to play them more as snipers. You get in close to your work and this thing will have a much better time as far as hitting things. My damage ratio was kind of low actually at 1.95. That surprised me a little bit. Destruction at 2.74, which was interesting that it was so much better than the damage ratio right there. It looks like the 750 Alpha is pretty good at erasing near deads, is what I would gather from that. And the armor use efficiency is right there along with the one before it, which surprised me a little bit because I felt like I bounced more in the tier 9. However, you got to realize the tier 9 is going to see a lot more tier 10s out there, and all the tier 9 guns are pretty fantastic guns for the most part. So realize a lot of gold is being slung, all that good stuff. So armor becomes less and less important at the tier 9 and 10. But still, 0.72, while you're not bulling forward and saying my armor will save me every time, you can bull forward and say, you know what, I have a reasonable expectation of my armor helping me out in this battle a few times. Experience at 966, damage 2,624, which is pretty low for a tier 9. That's not amazing at all. Damage received at 1342, assistance at 275 is kind of expected out of a TD. Spotted is down low, which you would expect, and destroyed at 1.42, which was okay. If you look at the maxims, I got it to a 7 kill battle, and that actually was a battle that got my 260, my object 260. There is a video on that one on my page. I'm not going to use it as one of my examples today because I've already done that as a video. If you search in there, it's the Object 260 game where I ended up getting it with 8.5 thousand damage or something in a loss. Yeehaw. Alright, let's look at a couple examples of how to play this tank. So for the first example, I wanted to show you kind of an interesting one here, and it does show what a heavily armored TD, one of these kind of assault TDs with the big boomstick, can do in influencing a battle when it's not necessarily carrying the battle on its back all the way. You'll see that I have loaded into Tundra here, and I am middle tier in a 357. I have a Sturv behind me, a J Panther behind me. I've got a tier 8. Looks like our bat chat's gone up on the hill, and I've got a tier 8 helping me in here as well with the pilot who's nearly dead. So I've come up to the hill on the east side, and you'll watch what I do here is basically I stuff up this lane with the IS-7 and the guard and several other tanks. So I'm going to come up here, look for a shot on him, but he gets away. You can see that it's not really a fantastically mobile tank, and while the depression is okay, it's not really good enough to get up and over this hill unless I completely expose myself. So I've got to be careful about coming too far forward to get shot in the side by the IS-7, and the IS-7 is busy chasing the bat chat off the hill anyway. So now we've got a bit of an issue right here. They've got quite a few tanks up here. I don't want to get so far forward that I get pummeled by either one of these guys. But what I'm doing is just influencing the battle and trying to keep these two busy and stuck on this hill. You'll see that the Arty actually tried to fire into me there. That lets me know that I'm probably in a place where I can be hit, but not completely. So I back down a little. Maybe they'll come around. I do have some TDs kind of camping in the back. Maybe they'll do some work on these guys. And I sort of expected to be rushed, but I'm not going to get rushed. They don't seem interested in that, so I'm going to go ahead and move up. And you'll see that I just bait a shot there. And when even though he's looked down, had such a high angle right there, it was probably pretty close to auto bounce on the angle, especially with that 200 millimeter. I didn't quite see if he may have hit me in the mantlet right there, but either way, that was a very angled shot with a very thick armor. So I continue to just hold on to this lane right here, and it's a good example of what a large boomstick TD with some armor can do. They would be a lot more prone to poke down and shoot at me if they knew they could pen every time. And you'll see that I punish the IS-7 for coming down. The guard takes a shot and he misses, and now I've got their tier 10 TD kind of staring at me. So I really don't want to go up there and challenge his pin. More than likely he's going to put it through me. I'm a little bit worried he might get the top of my tank, but my hatches aren't huge, and I'm able to just kind of stuff their 2 tier 10s on this hill while the rest of my team is working on them. Now we've got quite an advantage. And I've only dropped 750. I haven't done a whole bunch. I'm keeping these guys busy. The IS-7 came off the hill and ends up dying, so that works out well for us. And now I've got a 268 and guard hanging out up here. And, you know, kind of boring gameplay right there. I'm not really racking up the numbers, but I have kept some of their very important tanks busy. And now, as my team starts to win, I can think about pushing up and getting a little bit more aggressive. I need to find out, where is this 268? What is he doing? Ah, there he is. Kind of what I figured. He came up there. The Sturb is now coming up behind me. And he's just going to push in then. He's got the mobility to do this, and I'm going to follow him. Now, I said that it's okay mobility, but you can see that all that armor, heavy tank, big boomstick, so it's trading mobility for armor and a gun. I'm able to finally get up here and drop 598. That was quite the low roll on that guy. And now the Sturb sneaks between us. I stop. I don't want to go ahead and ram him, so I stop him, and you'll see that I end up bouncing that shot from the 268 from my armor. And I'll just put in an ammo rack on him. Whammo 916, and we take that guy down. So like I said, this is not a game where what I did absolutely won the game, but it's a good example of what you can do with one of these great big heavily armored boomstick kind of tanks with the 750 Alpha. People are afraid to push them. They don't want to eat that 750. Once they do, they get worried. They certainly don't want to take another one, much like that IS-7 did right there. And I have no idea how they didn't kill this guy, and I actually end up getting the kill shot on him. But I do. And I don't get any more hit points. So I dropped 3,000, so that's an okay game, not amazing. Bounce 1,600, but more importantly, clog up an entire lane with essentially one tank and a couple TDs in the back. So that was important that they were back there. Those guys were not interested in pushing down on me, but the combination of me up front there and those guys in the back locked down an entire lane while the rest of the team ended up doing a nice job. So that's one example of a way to use this as a kind of assault TD or lane lockdown device. Let's move on to the second one. For our second example, I'm going to show you more of an assault TD kind of idea, although it still has elements of a lockdown TD for locking down a lane. We're on Erlenberg here, and I have spawned into a 357 on middle tier. And we spawn down in the south, and it's an assault, so we've got to get up to the north to win this game. And we've only got 10 minutes to do it, which is kind of a bummer in a slow tank. So I'm going to head up here towards the castle. Just wanted to note something. See that Hawk 12 blitzing through the middle? He's about to spot me. Once he clears the building, you can see that my 6th sense goes off, and that can be extremely deadly if there was any artillery or they had enough guys over there with draw distance. Now look at the draw distance line. They'd have to be pretty far forward, but sometimes they do move up there, and this usually is a factor if you're too close to this road right here. If you try to come up this road, they'll spot you and have all kinds of draw distance to shoot you. I've faded way to the south to try to avoid that, but you just can't stop the YOLO guy who is intent on driving forward and dying. So we'll just go fast here, zing forward, and I'm headed up here to this corner. Now, I already noted that there's no artillery in this game, so this is going to make this position much more usable. I'm going to have a good start right here against the IS-3 with dropping 1,500 on a single shot ammo rack, blow his turret right off. Coming on here, we're having a mill that's not too bright. He's just driving in. And what teams will do a lot of times on Erlenberg, especially when they're the northern spawn on assault as the defense, is they'll push right up to this castle, and they actually have a pretty easy time taking the castle and can often stuff you from the very beginning. But you'll notice that with me locking down this corner and dropping 750 on people, and I've got an E75 hiding out on the back there and a couple TDs in the very back, we're able to slow this down. Had they been any kind of aggressive, got around and taken me out, had they dug me out of this corner right here, they could have easily won this area. You can see that it's me and a damaged E75 and a couple guys in the back. but some of it is just that fear factor of this 750 alpha gun. People just don't want to take the hit. I make several mistakes here trying to take on this ST1 by shooting him in the turret, which does no good. Mod 1 bounces, and thankfully the ST1 shoots into the dirt. But he's got to really come up and over. See, this mill is doing what has to be done to get to me. But I slam him for 914 with a nice high roll right there. Very lucky. And I'm already at 4,000. Game is fairly even, but we are holding on over here, and we're winning over on the other side. So as long as we can hold back the forces here, we'll be doing all right. The E75 is doing his best to stem the tide on the other side. And you'll notice that I've stopped moving because when I was playing this game, somebody came to the door and I had to go talk to them. So it took a little while, and now I am back. Thank goodness they didn't push during that time, or I'd be near dead, if not dead. There's a little rise right there, so it's not easy to use this tank's depression sometimes, and it's not very mobile. So I don't feel like I can really push down on these guys and start taking them on. There's a Type 5 hanging out back there. There's a Sturv, which is doing his siege mode thing right there on that kind of side of that hill. So very difficult. Another ill-advised shot into the side of the turret, and I see another shot come in there, so I think something in the back there is shooting at me. So I don't really feel like I can come around that corner at this point. Yep, there's that Type 5. He's hanging out over there, but he's way back on the other side. Well, maybe I can get a shot here, but I just don't have the depression to quite get the gun onto him. If I had come at him a little lower, shifted down a little lower on that hill, I might have got there. So the Rev gets the Mod 1. The Mod 1 was a problem. He was doing a lot of spotting, so that was a nice job there. The Sturv is taking some hits, and the ST1's making a run for it. So that's good news. And they're down to 4 tanks. I can see that at least 2 of them are back in the back right there. The ST1's headed back to cap, and now I'm going to come up this hill. I wish I'd have been more aggressive. If I'd have just come straight up and over, I might have got a shot. As you'll see, I end up spotting him, but he's right almost to that rock, and I just can't quite get my gun on him and get a shot off before he gets around behind it. And then I am a big old Sally. I take a shot, which is fine, but I'm a big old Sally just sitting back here. If I'd have just pushed down with the ST1, we'd have taken this guy out much faster. I am attempting to be Sniper Boy right here, and I have no business doing that. So sorry there, Rudy Candenoza. Bad play on my part right here for sure. You can see that the other 3 are up by their cap right there. Now it's 2. So they're down to 3 tanks. This is just clean up an L2, and I needed to move forward just to gobble up a few more hit points. Eventually I'll figure this out. So we'll speed up the gameplay a little bit. Looking. Guy's taking hits. I'm still sitting there like a big old goober, and finally I move forward. The good news here is that the ST1, the enemy ST1, makes me pay for my stupidity because he's actually reloaded. As I come around the corner, he sees me, I come around, he hits me, damages me, tracks me, but I'm able to take him out. And now we will head up this way, and I'll actually get some more hit points. As I always say on my videos, never stop hitting W and looking for hit points. Doesn't matter what part of the game it is. Eventually, you are going to drive into some, and I will drive into some right here. So I'll drop another 824. On my reload, I'm just going to move up to where I have a little bit better shot on this guy. So right here is what I want. Let's see what I can get out of him. He's got quite a few hit points left. So we'll just kill him right here with a nice shot right into the... No. That one went into the gun or something. But the tanks that are swarming him are having a hard time pinning him, it looks like. He's spinning on them, looking at what he can do. He gets one of them. He's going to give me some nice side armor right here, and I'll drop another bomb on him. Thank goodness I missed the Patton, and I end up dropping another 861 on him, and the Patton gets the kill. So I come out of this with 6,906. Another example of using the tank as more of a upfront brawling kind of tank, locking down a lane, kind of a hybrid game right there, with me getting very weak at the end. So I should have definitely been pushing forward. That's one of the tank's strengths. If I'd have just come off that and started coming at him, that ST1 and the rest of those guys would have had a much easier time taking that guy down. Thankfully, it didn't cost us the game. All right, I may have one more. I'm going to go look at it. Let's check it out. For the third and final example, I'm going to show you more of a sniper kind of gameplay with the Tier 9 tank here. which will show you some of the challenges with this thing. You see that I'm trying to get up on the sniper hill on airfield. For the eastern spawn, it's not quite as good as the one in the western spawn. Not quite as much cover. And that guy sees me right off, and I take a hit. They do have a M53-55, and I'm really worried about him firing into me. It takes him quite a while before he does it, so until he proves that he's actually paying attention to me, I'm just going to hang out here with this Sturv, see what we can do about sniping these guys. The T10 takes a blind shot in there. I'm glad I wasn't there. So that's something I'll do. I get hit in the bush if I'm seen. You might as well get out of the way for a while. People sometimes tend to shoot right into that bush. And the enemy team is pushing pretty hard into here. I have just enough depression. I'll be able to work this side here, but I'll be singing every time I do it. But we got a KV-5 wants to come around, so I just drop one in on him. All kinds of pen on this gun, so didn't really spend a lot of time aiming, just fire at him. I had a fairly good expectation of penning that guy, even with the vaunted KV-5 armor, and I'll just end up finishing him off in 2 shots. Got a 416 peeking around there, and you can see that they've got us pushed back, along with the already dropping shots in there from both sides, theirs and ours. But this Swedish tank having a good time. I catch the ISU poking around. We'll put a drop onto him. 658, bit of a low roll. That'll go with the 832 high roll for the KV-5. So I'm just sitting here on this sniper hill, doing what I can with the sniping. You'll notice that I get some good RNG in here, so you can see that the dispersion circle is pretty large. So I get some lucky shots in here, and I get a couple bad misses as well, which is what you'd expect from a tank with kind of a derpy 750 alpha gun at this range. Now this isn't sniping from long range by any means, but it's certainly not up in your face close, so it is a bit of a challenge with some of this. You'll see that just drops on his back deck. I mean, that's just pure luck right there. The guy was moving to get out of the way, and I popped that one on there. And for some reason, this Lorraine foolishly comes around the corner, decides he's going to come clip somebody. And I dissuade him of that notion pretty quickly. And then the Sturv makes him regret that completely. So just sitting back here sniping. Looks like the Sturv's on his way out. Pretty soon here, I think I'm going to get hit by artillery. You can see that it's got enough maneuverability to get around, and I missed that shot, unfortunately. There's one of those ones that just goes right in the dirt. It's got enough maneuverability to kind of maneuver around this rock, but it's not dexterous by any means. Pretty soon here, I'm going to get some attention from the artillery. So the T10 and the T34 lived, and me and this other TD, and I'm not paying attention enough right there, me and this other TD kind of make them pay for coming around the corner. So it wasn't a complete disaster. Had we not been here, those guys would have been eaten up pretty quickly, but it's not going great either. 416 wants to come around and just catch him on the back, drop 760 on the guy, and there he goes down with the Sturv. So the 1-2 punch with my big alpha and then the Sturv's accurate gun is doing some pretty good work on these guys. And like I said, I think it's somewhere in here I'm going to eat an already shot. He finally notices that the TDs are tearing the snot out of his guys. T10 gets away, and again, that guy is living a charmed life. I have not been ready every time he is poked. The 1390 up in the north is causing issues. I really want to get rid of that guy, but there's nothing I can really do about him right now. If I come up, yeah, there's the arty. If I come up over top of the hill and start looking for him, that little opening right there to my right has a good chance of having me get seen. T10's moved up 103. They're pushing the T34 and our T10, and I'm thinking, you know what, it's time for me to get off this. The arty's already proven that he's looking at me. Let's come down here. See, the T10's out in the open, so let's help our guys out, see if we can take this guy down. There we go, and there goes the 103. And now I'm going to run for this edge. I'm going to get this between me and where I believe the artillery is, which is down in the K1 area based on the direction the shots came from. This guy takes a couple shots at me, and then he tries to back up, realizes he's being spotted there and shot at, and I'm able to take him down. So I'm just right now trying to avoid getting swacked by artillery. And I'll stay here for a while. I'm going to speed this up because what I do is I come over here, pretty standard, try to get up into this sniper hill, which I do, and then I notice that I've got a bit of a scrum going on. I got a WZ111 down south there with an ISU and a Type 59, and I wait a little too long. I finally get off my duff, come out there, and he dies. So as I move up, I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe I can catch one of these guys out. I'm hoping they've come around this corner, but they don't seem to be there, and I'm losing friends right and left. The Type 59 is repositioned over to the north side of the middle hill. So I'm looking for this ISU, hoping I'll see him, and guess what? There he is. He's repositioned, so now I'm completely out of position again. And I've got to chase this guy around. So as you can see, it's got mobility, but it's not amazing. And I just had a hard time kind of getting back to the battle. What I do here is I'm going to tuck up into this bush, and I'm hoping that this low is going to come around this corner here and start looking around, and I'll be able to drop one into him right here. The artillery is still a factor. We are winning now. But with the artillery and the P Victoria and the low right here, I'm having a real hard time finding a silhouette on him. He's behind that rock. Cannot quite get it, and there's the P Victoria. So I'll maneuver a little bit here, and I'm hoping this T10 can spot him. By the way, if you're wondering, this little notch right here, if you get right up into that notch, that T10 had come around and got right up into that notch, he just spotted that guy via proximity spot up against those rocks right there. That's just put that in your bag of tricks if you need to know where that guy is there. So I'm going to snap forward a couple times on this because I spent a lot of time sitting here. You can see we're at 5 minutes, 4:47. There goes the 4202, so he goes around behind. Now he finds the artillery and I miss, unfortunately. There's the derpiness of that gun. 4202 chases that M53. We have an artillery as well, so he must have missed in there at some point. He's trying to chase him down. And finally we end up getting their artillery out. So now we're down to 2 tanks, but we've got the low and the P Victoria and the T10. So I should have got off this hill a little earlier. And once again, I'm like, oh yes, no. I mean, almost had that guy. Cannot quite get a highlight on him. T10 is spotting him, so he's getting up around there enough to spot him. And I just keep kind of moving around trying to figure out, why can I not get just a corner on this dude? And he's not there. So we'll move forward here. He actually ends up killing the T10. So I chase down the low. The 4202 has moved out into the open, and the 2 tanks are on him. So I've got to move up this ramp and take out this low. And I'm at 4,300, so I dropped some more damage on this dude. Up to 4,800. 5 kills, and I'm thinking, man, I've got 2 minutes and 13 seconds to kill this P Victoria and not get circled to death. The Sturv is starting to move forward, so my first thought is I'll get up on this hill. There goes an artillery shell in, right? So you saw that artillery shell going where the P Victoria is, and it would appear that he burned to death. So the 55-55 hit him, and the guy didn't have a fire extinguisher, or he wasn't quick enough on his manual. He ends up burning to death from a shot from the arty, so that's pretty heinous. We end up winning that. I dropped 4,800. Shows a little bit more of the challenges that you have if you're going to try to be a sniper with this tank. It's okay at it. Much like the last game, if I'd have got a little more aggressive end game, things probably would have turned out a lot better. If I'd have pushed in there, me and the T10 probably could have worked over that low pretty quickly. I was just worried about the P Victoria slapping us in the side. Alright guys, well that is it for the review for the WZ111G FT. I hope you learned something here. I hope you like what you saw. As always, make sure you subscribe if you did, and we will see you.